Just like the town whore trying to explain her dress code in the middle of summer is all baggy clothes and hooded sweatshirts, it's complicated. It's complicated in the Middle East right now, okay? We've had a long stretch of relative peace, and as soon as Biden takes the reins and summarily drops them and wanders off into the field, the rockets start flying. So we're going to go back earlier in the week. So Palestine launches a rocket attack, the Iron Dome takes over, defends Israel as best it can, and then Israel launches a counterattack, and shit goes fucking sideways. And now Israel and Palestine are once again fighting over the Gaza Strip, a piece of land that is home to more shells than a fucking turtle aquarium. Nothing else. So the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, ground troops attack Gaza. Netanyahu, this operation will continue as long as necessary. Like I've been saying for a couple of days, I don't know where I line up. That's why this has been so long in the percolator as to where my position is. I've just been presenting the information as best as it comes in and not really giving a perspective on it. Mostly because my gut says go pro-Israel. It also says, I don't know, take a neutral position. Okay, so I've been looking at both sides of the aisle. Where does everybody line up? Okay, and then that process got expedited because we had this today, so that ground troop attack is already going on. And then you had the Associated Press's building getting destroyed by Israelis in Palestine. Oh, I'm sorry, in Gaza. But then more information came out that they were also housing Hamas terrorists there. Ooh, fucking weird, huh? So the building which housed the Associated Press Gaza Bureau, as well as supposed offices of Hamas, was leveled by an Israeli airstrike on Saturday. Yeah, I seen this pop up last night-ish, but, you know, time change and stuff. So yeah, that makes it Saturday over there and a late Friday for us. Many have criticized Israel for its decision. However, according to the Daily Wire, which is kind of a biased pro-Jewish outlet, but we'll let it slide. The reason Israel targets these civilian buildings is because Hamas and Palestinian authorities hide intelligence operations, weapons, and other important assets in these buildings, so it can claim victimhood when they're destroyed. It's the Daily Wire going against the Associated Press, so the bias kind of balances out and kind of all just comes out in the wash, or in the rocket fire in this case. Their article about the event, the Associated Press said that the staffers and other tenants safely evacuated the building after the military telephoned and warning that the strike was imminent within an hour. This proves that Israel's intentions were only to target Hamas, not journalists or civilians. Nevertheless, President and CEO of the Associated Press, Gary Pruitt, was quick to condemn Israel, just like every other mainstream outlet out there right now. It's fucking weird, right? Like, okay, you can see it. Gal Gadot right here. Okay, Wonder Woman. We'll go ahead and flip to that article. She's Israeli. She fought for the IDF for as long as she was in Israel for her prescribed amount of time before she left. And as a denizen of Israel, and that is what you were supposed to do. That is a part of your citizenship when you were there. And yeah, Wonder Woman actress says she is praying for a solution so that Israel and its neighbors can live side by side in peace. Israeli actress Gal Gadot called for peace amongst neighbors in a message posted across their social media networks on Wednesday, and then she was summarily torn apart because of it. And it would make sense for her to have a pro-Israel stance because, well, I think the name kind of says it all, right? We are shocked and horrified that the Israeli military would target and destroy the building housing AP's bureau and other news organizations in Gaza. Well, they also told them to evacuate because you guys are harboring terrorists, so they're going to blow up the building. Makes sense to phone ahead and clear everybody out. Was anybody hurt or anything destroyed? Apparently forgetting that his team had been notified of the Israeli military beforehand, he stated that they narrowly avoided a terrible loss of life. Leave it up to the Associated Press to politicize something when they're supposed to be the impartial arbiters of truth. But they just lead. Okay, every other mainstream network, they just go ahead and they pick off all of the Associated Press headlines and just spin their narrative however you want to. So it doesn't matter which major network out there right now, with the exception of Fox News maybe, all of them are pushing pro-Israel propaganda. I don't even know. I don't really know. Like I said, finding a source of this conflict is difficult at best, but like I'm saying, everybody is ripping off this same Israel bad narrative. Like, you even go over to just the festering asshole of games journalism, okay? I loved, with a D at the end of that statement, video games for a very long time. The computer that I do my recording on is a high-end performance rig. I could list you off all of the components that are inside. It's a hefty bitch, and it's quite an extensive piece of work. I built it all by myself, thank you very much. All for the intent and purpose of playing these wonderful games that came out. And then by the time that I put the computer together, and by the time that I was able to put out a 4K 120 hertz machine, they stopped making good games. They stopped becoming escapist entertainment, and then it just became another political platform for assholes to just spit out their message, to spite their audience, to just push forth a hateful message. Another vehicle for less than stellar actors to go ahead and get their message out there, because Hollywood is dying, so now they're just trying to latch on to the new up-and-comer by pushing their fucking, astroturfed mascots. Like, okay, Kratos has earned it for the PS4, or for the PS5 now, sorry. God of War was one of the best received games of the PS4's life cycle. And there's supposed to be a second one coming out. It'll be out on the PS5. That'll be terrific, I'm sure. Wonderful. It's in the back catalog. PS4, I don't even know if it's fucking plugged in. The last game I played was the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I totally 100% enjoyed. But nothing else really has come out in the past 5-ish years that has really tickled my fancy. And then for Xbox, because I don't know, instead of just having Master Chief or Marcus Phoenix there, somebody who's actually recognizable for the Xbox brand, no, they have their autistic fucking political messaging for mental health awareness. What is Senua or some shit? I don't know. She hears voices in her head, and it's touching and inspiring, and go fuck yourself. What did I bring you guys to this page? Well, they got a big old donate button, and I'm a little bit upset because I read something earlier that they had a little flag there, but I guess I got a little bit of pushback on that one, so they just had to make it a big old Red Cross donate button. And where does that button take you? Well, guys, how to help Palestine civilians. Why? Well, because Palestinian civilians are currently suffering in great numbers in Jerusalem. Is Jerusalem in Palestine, or is that in Israel? Oh, okay. Gaza and the West Bank. Who initiated the conflict this time around? Yeah, exactly. Due to Israeli forces, the New York Times reported that most of the deaths so far have occurred in Gaza. We want to highlight the humanitarian crisis in Palestine because while there have been fighting in the region for decades, generations at this point, you're being a little bit generous, recent escalations have seen a catastrophic loss of Palestinian lives. Below are charities and organizations on the ground in those areas who want to donate funds to those who need it most. Blah, 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 blah. How many of these are even remotely? Doctors Without Borders. Medical aid for Palestinians. You know that it borders with Israel and people there being attacked as well. But this is on a games journalism site. It's supposed to be about escapism and games. Dumbasses. It's just fucking AIDS. And then, of course, they're citing the New York Times. Okay, so we got the author of the article that they link to in their help page, because that's what games journalists and that's what video game websites need to be concerning themselves about, political issues, just to show you that video games are the latest victim of progressive leprosy. David Brooks is the man, not Mo Brooks. Unfortunately, he can't be as based. Many times Hamas attacks, then Israel responds with an overreaction. Palestine sending over 150 rockets for reasons we don't know so far, or at least I'm not aware of. And then it was an overreaction to defend yourself? Weird. This is why I just find myself naturally wanting to defend Israel on this one. And we'll get into the other side's response, because we could take a look at what the Democrats themselves are saying, but just imagine it's the most insane shit just ratcheted up to squad levels of insanity. Rashida Tlaib, I don't know if her name's appeared on the sidebar yet, but that motherfucker has lost her absolute shit right now. So that's where they sit. So if I was to give you an unbiased opinion, we got to go to the New York Times, or at least something approximating a little bit more of a less emotional response, shall we? On Friday's PBS NewsHour, New York Times columnist David Brooks said that there have been many regulated conflicts where Hamas acts to improve its standing with Palestinians. In Israel, the Israelis do something else, often an overreaction. Care to quantify that there, Dave? And then both sides stand down. Brooks added that the way things are, but there has been a perpetual escalation over the last few days. Brooks stated that he doesn't see much of a role of the United States in the conflict. He's just hoping and praying because the previous administration was incredibly pro-Israel. And that's where I'm just seeing the attacks right now. It's like when I was trying to look for a pro-Palestinian stance from somebody who is reasonable, because I can't take anything that the New York Times say at even face value. None of the mainstream networks fit the bill. I'm trying to find somebody who's decent, somebody who I would normally rely upon if it was anything else. And the only other guys that kind of just tertiarily come to mind, Glenn Greenwald, Michael Tracy, guys who come from a left-leaning perspective who are pretty based on most subjects. And what is their assumption of everything right now? Well, okay, Palestine's in the right. It's like, okay, what's your opinion on this? But the only reason that there's so much support for the pro-Israel side right now is because that's the legacy of the American First pro-Trump side, and then it just goes on to attack that position. It's like, wait, what? No, I need to know your position. It just can't be an attack. And it's like, okay, so can the right substantiate their side? Steve Scalise, okay, number 2 in the House of Representatives, the GOP. He's got both the Trump side and he's got the establishment side. So what's their take on this? Biden spends more time helping Iran than stopping Hamas rockets. Okay, so now they're just trying to make it a political issue. Give me the fucking facts. Let me find something. I've been all over the place. I could show you the different networks. You guys can do your own research as well. Go to CNN. Go to the New York Post. Go to the New York Times. Go to OANN. You can just keep bouncing back and forth. I'm showing you Breitbart. I'm showing you Epoch Times would be on there as well. All of it is just playing politics. It's like the Democrats are hardline Palestinians. Then the Republicans are hardline Israelites. I don't know. So here's the most based take I've seen so far. It comes from Robert Barnes, because of course it does, okay? And he's been doing some research on this as well, because he's also been trying to find a pro-Palestinian take from somebody who is at least got it between the ears. And this is what he's come up with. He has come up wanting as well. He got a good take on this. Of course he does. I need not once again extol the virtues of the great Robert Barnes, and I'll just allow him to speak his mind. The bottom line with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is that the Arabs refuse to recognize Israelis' right to exist, and always have. Yes, we've seen the tenets of Hamas as well, and one of them is the eradication of all Jews. How can you negotiate with those people? After the Balfour Declarations, Arabs in the region staged violent riots during Muslim holidays to protest the idea of any Jewish state in the region, rejected the British offer for any Jewish state in the region, even very, very small one, terrorized the Jewish community there for decades, waged a full-scale rebellion for years against both the Jewish and British, and even rejected an Arab-dominated single Palestinian because they didn't want any Jewish recognition in 1939. Then the Grand Mufti of Palestine, the first major modern Palestinian Arab leader, joined the Nazis. Oh my God. He organized Muslims around the world for the Nazi cause, rallied them to kill the Jews wherever you find them, organized a Muslim branch of the SS. Weird. Orchestrated Jews trying to escape to be sent to camps instead, and never fully apologized for his Nazi alliance. Many of the modern anti-Semitic ideas from the Middle East were heavily influenced by the campaigns. I won't read all of this. I will just pick a couple of different points as well, because I don't want to plagiarize all of his work. For Christ's sakes, the man wrote it down, did his research, and he's a gift to humanity. In 1967, the Arabs once again bolstered of raising their armies to wage war in Israel, and once again got their asses kicked. This time, the Israelis took back key lands, including East Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank, and did not do the mass expulsion and harsh oppressions that the Arabs had done to the Jews in those regions. when they had won in 1948. Soon after, Israel again offered land for peace, mostly seeking a mere recognition of the right to exist. And again, the Arabs refused with their infamous three no's: no peace, recognition, or Israel. No two-state solution. Arab nations also rejected Palestinian refugees coming to their countries and instead using them as stateless people to wage war on Israel. The Western left began to celebrate the Palestinian Arab side in the 1960s as cool, chic rebels, but it took on a new life in the 2000s when some blamed the Israeli conflict for the roots of 9/11. See the CIA-backed book Blowback. And American left especially shifted their perspective en masse from seeing minority Islamists as oppressive minorities. The left's strange love affair with Islamists blossomed into full bloom in large parts of the Western media, academia, think tanks, and ultimately the government itself, as much of the State Department and big parts of the deep state is virtually anti-Israel. Notice how the Palestinian Arab narrative tends to track the anti-Trump or BLM or comparable media narratives when they push propaganda. Even the visuals often look alike between the BLM and Palestinian Arab narratives. And that isn't coincidental. Interesting. Yeah, because all you need to do is just take a glimpse through any social media network right now. Okay? And the big trends all over Twitter are pro-Palestinian. Okay? And they always have their free free Palestine, something. They all got their fucking slogans out there. They got their trends right there, and no fair representation of the other position, which of course I've been doing this a long time, even before my channel started, trying to find out what is right, what is wrong, what is the truth. And the fact that there is a distinct lack of representation for the other opinion leads me to believe that there's got to be some truth to it, based on all of the evidence that has been provided and all of the examples that have been borne out. All you need to do is just remember back to Hunter Biden's laptop, talking about a certain theft of a certain thing. All of that stuff was not that long ago. And currently what we're dealing with right now when it comes to the insurrection, which you could properly categorize as a riot, how that's continuing to get spun out of control. There is little to no representation of the other side in the mainstream media or the big tech cabal, and that gives me pause more than anything else. Bottom line, no peace or withdrawal will come until the Arab world accepts Israel's right to exist, withdraws its demand to re-Arab populate Israel with the right to return, and isn't filled with an Arab population that can't kill or wait to kill all the Jews. Everything else is political theater to induce Western empathy as a victimized, occupied people when they live on land legitimately won in war. And the only reason that they are still there is because the Israelis were nowhere near as vicious as the Arabs when they ruled the exact same areas toward the opposite religious group. Indeed, up to 20% of Israel itself is Arab, with much stronger protections than you will find for any Jew in the Arab nation. A very funny end line here. Ignore the lies, and as always, be skeptical of the institutional narrative. And never trust the group that decided to side with the Nazis. Great article, great little think piece, a whole bunch of information there. If you guys wanted to read the rest of it, feel free to just pause on the video, read through it. I did. It's a great read. You guys got a little glimpse of it as well, if you just wanted the audio version. And that's kind of where I started, and that'll be probably my position going forward unless something comes out that is paradigm shifting, because I always reserve the right to be wrong. A sensible person wouldn't die on this hill anyways. I'm not fucking Jewish. All of my history is very well oppressed, so I have some sympathy for these guys. Speaking of which, I got to talk about my current home country, which I can't wait to leave because it's becoming an embarrassment of global proportions. And the newest leak is, I don't know, just the latest nail in the fucking coffin. Thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.